In the last lecture module, we discussed the case of baby Teresa. In this module, we'll pivot to look at the case of Jody and Mary from 2000. Jody and Mary were born conjoined twins with a fused spine. Conjoined twins are identical twins, though they're joined in utero so that they develop conjoined. This condition is pretty rare, just like the condition that afflicted baby Teresa. It's estimated between 1 in 50,000 and 1 in 90,000 births are conjoined twins. Though we don't know why, there's a somewhat higher incidence of conjoined twins in places like Southeast Asia and Africa. About 3 out of 4 live births of conjoined twins are female. Now, I don't think people really know why we see these distributions, but we do see them. Approximately half of all conjoined twins are stillborn, and about an additional third of them die within 24 hours. There are two conflicting theories about what causes conjoined twins, but the most widely accepted theory is that an egg gets fertilized and breaks apart, but incompletely, in utero. Both pieces develop, though they're not completely broken apart, resulting in the fetuses being fused together during development. In the case of Jody and Mary, they're fused at the spine, but they are also an instance of what is sometimes called parasitic twins, because Jody is more developed, and they only have one heart and one pair of lungs between them. Mary relies upon Jody for a heart and lungs. Jody is the more viable of the two fetuses. However, both of them, it was determined by the hospital, were going to die unless doctors perform an operation to separate them. Such an operation, doctors thought, would probably kill Mary, though it was very likely that Jody would live. So if we look at the facts of the case then, what we see, Jody and Mary were born with a fused spine. They had only one heart and one pair of lungs. They would both die unless Mary died in separation. And our case question then, is it right or wrong to separate the twins? With the facts of the case laid out, let's shift our focus over to the first argument, the argument that we in fact should perform the operation. We call this argument the argument that we should save as many as we can. Again, it starts with the articulation of a general ethical principle. It's always right to save as many people as we can, and we might put in that principle as well, even if it results in the death of an innocent. The operation will save Jody, though Mary will die. Introduce the relevant facts of the case, given our principle. Not performing the operation will result in both dying. Again, relevant facts from the case. Conclusion, we ought to perform the operation because it allows us to save as many of the twins as we can. When we look at Rachel's evaluation of this argument, we find that he thinks that it is conditionally sound. He accepts this argument as a legitimate argument, but as we'll see in the next argument, he lays down very specific conditions for when that first premise, that general ethical rule, can actually be applied. It's not always the case that we can act in a way that saves as many people as we can. There have to be certain limitations on our killing or otherwise harming innocents in order to save those people. And so he thinks the argument is conditionally sound as long as we meet the conditions that he specifies when talking about the sanctity of life argument. Let's conclude this module by looking at the second argument in the Jody and Mary case. This argument is called the argument from the sanctity of human life. As before, we start with a premise that articulates an ethical principle. All innocent human life is sacred and can never be taken, even for a good purpose. Saving Jody would require killing an innocent human, i.e. Mary. Conclusion, therefore we ought not to perform the operation. Rachel evaluates this argument as possibly unsound, and in particular, he again looks at that general principle, that first premise there, and he tells us the following on page 7. He says, perhaps it's not always wrong to kill innocent human beings. For example, such killings may be right when 3 conditions are met. A, the innocent human has no future because she is going to die soon, no matter what. B, the innocent human has no wish to go on living, perhaps because she has no wishes at all. And C, this killing will save others who can go on to lead full lives. In these rare circumstances, the killing of an innocent might be justified. So as Rachel observes, in the Western ethical tradition, that first premise is understood as an exceptionless statement. That is, there are no cases where the rule doesn't apply. What he's suggesting is maybe there are cases. And in fact, in the very formulation of that first principle, we actually have built into it a set of exceptions. We don't say all human life is sacred and can never be taken, even for a good purpose. We say that all innocent human life is sacred and can never be taken, even for a good purpose. So, for example, if you kill someone in self-defense, it wouldn't be a violation of this principle as it's stated in the argument. In the next lecture module, we'll look at the third and last case of this chapter.